All right, good to go. All right, first question. This one's open for either or both of you. This last year's featured a lot of kind of eco horror and green horror films like this, In the Earth, Gaia, as well as folk horror. Would you count the feast as one or either of them? Why or why not?
It's both, I think. It's
Okay.
both, absolutely. I mean, it is a film about it's a contemporary morality tale in many ways. You know, it draws on folk legends and myths, so it very definitely ticks the folk horror box. Um, but I guess that's the sort of the 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 culturally specific element of the story. You know, Welsh myth is very definitely in the DNA of the piece, but also in terms of the universal story, you know, it's a warning. And in the blood-soaked conclusion of the piece, sort of says that this sort of fragile planet on which we live will someday take revenge for the devastation we have caused. So yes, it's folk horror, and yes, it's eco horror.
Okay. Yeah, and love that finale. I don't want to give away too many spoilers, but
Oh, great,
yeah,
good.
the
And
green
it's
message
terrifying.
that we've got to find symbiosis with the earth rather than kind of
Absolutely.
parasitism.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? And this sort of it feels very okay. We made it in 2019, but it feels even more relevant and timely now in the advent of COP26, and the fact
Yeah.
that this message is very much, the one of climate crisis is very much on the agenda, isn't it? And yeah, it's interesting, isn't it, how you make something and it feels urgent, but then when you see it 2 years down the line, it's even more urgent and even more in the
Yeah.
zeitgeist.
And we were
Very,
saying
very,
earlier that also after all the lockdowns that we've had worldwide, where aviation stopped and transport stopped, and suddenly you very quickly noticed how quickly nature started to recover and how animals returned and how the sound of the birds was so much more prominent than it used to be. And you have that in the film, that nature will dominate. And even with the fact that you might have noticed the flies in the film, that
yeah.
gives it a whole element that actually we are in nature's place. It's not ours, and we're not there to control everything. We have been welcomed here, and we are under nature's power.
And, and,
Exactly.
and yet it's sort of it's interesting because it is very timely, and yet it's the oldest story that's ever been told, probably, which is the battle between nature and culture, between
Yeah.
Apollo and Dionysus, as I keep on saying. You know, it's sort of Greek. It's about a battle between two forces, and most stories, I think, most fairy tales, for example, are precisely that.
Yeah. I don't remember who said it, but I remember in a writing class, someone mentioned there are three stories: man versus nature, man versus man, and man versus self.
Yeah, yeah,
So this is very solid iconography.
absolutely. Yeah.
Lee, I do see that this is your feature debut. Were there any parts of production and directing a film that caught you off guard or were extra challenging?
um, Challenges. I mean, I've been around the block a few times, and a lot of people sort of say that directing television and directing film are significantly different, and of course they are different, but there are similarities. So I knew the nuts and bolts. I guess the one element that I found most challenging was the freedom of it. Film cinema is very definitely a director's medium, and there's an expectation that you will, as a director, kind of bring your vision to bear on the material, and that freedom, coming from a background where you have lots of executive producers in television, kind of sort of steering you in the way that they want to steer you. Having that freedom was quite immense, overwhelming at times at first, but then once I've kind of embraced it, I absolutely loved the liberty that it afforded me as an experience. Really, it's a real joy to be able to sort of play as we did on set every day, and create something that is not run of the mill, that is sort of, it traverses genre, sort of tones effortlessly in a way, and is this sort of strange little beast, and a bit like Caddy, I guess, and I love that.
On the note of Kari, Anes, am I saying that correct?
Yes.
Okay, your character is very unique, kind of vacillating between observer and almost judge of the family. Did you have any specific inspirations for how you went about playing the role?
I didn't really take anything directly. I knew that she was a force of nature, and that she wasn't fully human, but she wasn't fully nature either. So, she was a human embodiment.
Yeah.
And so I just began thinking of what she feels like in the space, how she feels in this very alien structure when she's at home laying on the grass. Like, that's where she feels like she gets her power, and that's where she's at her strongest, but she has to carry that through and come into this house. And actually, she just, like the freedom that Lee felt as a director, I felt playing a character that didn't have social constructs to abide by. She doesn't feel the need to be funny or impressive or clever. She is just herself. And I compared her earlier to a child. She behaves instinctively, and she will look at someone for as long as she wants to look at someone, and she will take in that painting on the wall for as long as she needs to, and then she can let things go. So I think she's a very free character, and that made me feel very relaxed. And I felt very at home playing her, even though initially when I read the script, I had no idea what she would be, really.
Yeah, I can't imagine the mental processing to get ready for the role, because it is such a instinctual and primal character type.
And so I think a lot of that just came from being on set and you can't really prepare yourself to take things in for the first time, but when you have all these things in front of you, it's a very tactile space. And so you are just taking things in for the very first, you're tasting things for the first time, and you're hearing things, and you're looking at all these people with all their quirks, and you're seeing them as if you've never seen a human before. And so it didn't really take any effort from me, because I just had to just allow myself to be new in the space.
Be open-minded and open-eyed.
Yeah,
I think that's a really, you saying now is seeing things for the first time. I think that's the key to the character, isn't it? She has no experience of this, and I think that's what Anna does beautifully, is to lead us through as an audience that all of those sensory experiences she has, and kind of allows us the space to project our own feelings and thoughts about these experiences onto her. And it's a really simple, complex performance, which I think is a really hard thing to pull off.
It was, but frankly, I feel Anna's kind of nailed it. It was a very unique
very good
performance.
She's very good.
I've seen a lot of eco and folk horror this year, and Anna's performance is definitely going to be one that just lingers in the brain and kind of haunts in a good way.
That's good. That's good. And to be honest, she was just to give you an insight into the casting process, she was the first choice. And unfortunately, I collared her at an awards ceremony, and she agreed. So that's good. Our good fortune.
Our good fortune. Both yours and us in the viewing audience.
Yeah.
All right. So it says I've got about time for one more question.
Cool.
With as I've already mentioned, kind of with both class and environmental commentary, the film seems to have a lot to say. This is an open question to both of you. What would you say the ultimate theme or message audiences should be taking away from the film?
You go first, Lee.
I go first. I mean, I think this is there's so much in here, I think, but by design in a way, because it's very specific about Welsh history and our relationship in Wales to the land and what we've done to the land and the way we've exploited the land. So it's singularly Welsh in that regard. There's very definitely an environmental sort of message, which sort of takes hold towards the end, which is the way that we abuse our planet. There's also lots of humor in there. I think very sort of dark, twisted kind of humor.
Certainly, yeah.
Yeah, and there's the social commentary, of course. Plus, then on top of that, you have all the horror moments, which some are explicit, although it's not that sort of explicit slasher type horror. It's more of a psychological sort of, there's a creeping dread, I think, that takes us through the film, and it hits you on a psychological terror level. So hopefully it has a little bit of something for everybody, you know, which is good, I think, because it should get a good sort of wide, broad audience because of that.
Yeah.
I think it's obviously quite a slow film. It gives you a lot of time to sit with your own role in how you behave in your land, and you know what your priorities are. And I don't think it has a lot to say. And obviously we are all now aware that we should all be doing things with an eye on what we leave for generations to come. But it's also, I don't think, because we all have that responsibility and none of us are perfect. So I don't think that people would watch it and feel personally judged, but I think they would come away just feeling reminded of the bigger picture and how easily we can be distracted by things like money and things that don't really matter at all. But we can be told over and over again that those are the things that matter, and you should have a nicer house and you should have matching glasses and things. And I think people will come away with a more balanced idea of their place, I think, but also hopefully they will have just enjoyed a bizarre little horror and hopefully come away with more, you know, more of a sense of Wales and Welsh things. So they'll have a new experience, and it gives a platform to Welsh film and the Welsh language. And I think that's an exciting prospect for all of us.
It is. If I still have time to say it, I wanted to say this is probably the first Welsh horror film I've actually seen, and it was nice to be immersed into that culture. And like Anas is talking about, it's not a judgmental film, but it's almost like a fairy tale parable. Reminded me like the uncensored Brothers Grimm stories.
Yeah, that was the source of inspiration for us, really. I describe it as a contemporary morality tale, and I think that's very strong in it. But it does provide, forgive the pun, food for thought, but also it does pack a punch and is a sort of a visceral injection to the senses, I hope. So yeah, a bit of both.
Yes, very visceral. I don't want to spoil for those who haven't seen, but there are definitely some moments that even I'm pretty desensitized to horror, and I was oof.
Good. That's good. That's
Yeah.
really.
If I'm not cut off yet, I'll ask one last question.
Yeah.
I mean, you mentioned the Welsh in the DNA. Why specifically Welsh culture and Welsh folklore?
Because we are Welsh. Anis and I and all the cast and Roger, the writer, we're all Welsh and we all speak Welsh.
Everybody?
Yes.
No one had to be trained or anything?
No. There's I'll just give you a very brief sort of précis of how it is in Wales. And there are about 600,000 Welsh speakers in Wales. And within that, you know, it's quite a performative tradition. So we have some rather fabulous singers and actors, and there's a really significant and talented pool of Welsh actors who work through the medium of the Welsh language, of which I was fortunate to sort of have the cream of the crop in
It
the
seems
film.
so, because
Yeah, no, so
performances were amazing.
yeah, so everybody, I mean, I think, yeah, they've all the actors have either spoken Welsh since they sort of were born or were taught Welsh from the age of 3 or thereabouts. So yeah, it's a first language for everybody, actually.
And I think
Wow.
it's quite intriguing, the surprise there that we were all Welsh speaking. I think quite often when you're filming things in Welsh at the moment, there's still that feeling that the rest of the world won't want to hear it if it's in Welsh, so you film it twice. And so the
Yeah.
rest of the world will watch the English version, even though we've already filmed a Welsh language version. And it's bizarre that that tradition is trending, because we're so open to watching foreign language productions. And I think that was partly why I was so excited by this script, was because it wasn't going to just bow down to that idea that English will make it more interesting, and just that it embraced the fact that we live in a country and we speak a Welsh language, and why not act in our language and create stories in our language and spread them, share them with the world, who I'm sure are much more open to hearing things in Welsh than we have given them credit to.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I'd say it worked. It helped give that mythic folkloric sense, just having it truly be in your Welsh language and not just, just like a Bible story being in English.
And it's a
Yeah.
language that
It's
sounds very different to many other languages. So I think especially for a horror, I'm sure it will start people off feeling unsettled from the beginning, because there's nothing familiar for them to latch onto.
yeah, like Cody, they're alien in that world.
Exactly.
Exactly.
All right, I think I've gone over already, so I just want to say thank you so much for this. I love the movie, and like I said, though I'm pretty desensitized, it had some pretty gnarly moments, and I enjoyed watching it.
Good, thank you, Chris.
Yeah, thank you. I hope you have a lovely day.
Cheers. Thank you very much.
All right, bye.
Thanks, Chris. Have a good one.